You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. This is real simple, Michael. This is real simple what we're seeing here. And that is Republicans don't give a damn about the voting rights of people of color. They don't care about the voting rights of everybody. They care about their side, largely white people voting. We see the games that they're playing, and I said it, and I don't care what people say. If you black and you voting for Donald Trump, you're voting against your own people. You're voting for thieves. You're voting for a Republican Party that is hell-bent on stealing elections. They want to put up every barrier. Yes, I don't care what anyone says. You can equate what Republican Party is doing today with what Dixiecrats and racists did to black people in the 50s and 60s to keep them from voting.
And frankly, and hey, Roland, and possibly even worse, because maybe even in the Jim Crow South, certainly in the 50s and 60s, it was still kind of in the shadows and people knew what was happening. But in today's world, these folks are just telling you their strategy. They're not ashamed. They don't care. They want you to know exactly what they're doing, how they're doing it, and they want you to do something about it. And the way you do something about it, and that's why I'm so proud of folks that are standing in line for 5, 6, 7, 10 hours in early voting to get their vote cast. It is so impressive. It's happening across the country. So people are saying, I don't care what your tactic is. I don't care how you try to scare me, how you try to suppress my vote. I'm going to vote anyway. So I'm proud of folks. But until one of the remedies, and we all know the problems, but until we have a national election law, not state by state, where a certain governor, a certain county commissioner can change the rules, can remove boxes, until we have a national election day law, it's not these kind of problems are going to persist. And we have to deal with, obviously, the Voting Rights Act. They can't keep coming up, obviously, for renewal. They should be permanent. And until those kind of issues, and we have the tools in our toolbox, but it starts with voting, getting these people out, and putting new people in.
Look, at the end of the day, Robert, what we are seeing here, and again, I'm going to say it, and I don't care what anybody out there says. If you are even remotely considering voting for any of these Republicans, you are voting for voter suppression. You are voting for a Kelly Loeffler in Georgia. You're voting for a Tom Tillis in North Carolina. You're voting for a John James in Michigan. You're voting for a Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. You're voting for a John Cornyn in Texas. You're voting for a Tommy Tuberville in Alabama. You're voting for a David Perdue in Georgia. You're voting for people who do not want to protect our elections, who do not want to reauthorize the Voting Rights Act. And when the Supreme Court next month takes up an Arizona case that could very well gut Section 2, you could have here we are, 55 years after the Voting Rights Act, you could have the most important voting legislation in American history completely gutted and allowing Republican legislatures to embark on political gerrymandering because the Supreme Court had no guts to deal with that. And what that then does, it ensures that Republicans are going to have gerrymandered districts, which guarantees they will get reelected, which means that the voting rights of others are simply being ignored. This is no doubt. This is not even a partisan issue. It is as Judith said, it's a fact issue.
To Judith's point, I think it's important to look at that point about demographics and the singularity that's coming in the near future, where America will become a majority-minority nation. The Republican Party has not won a national election in 16 years. They have won a grand total of one popular vote. since 1988, which was in 2004. So they understand that the majority of American people are not with them. You very rarely see Republicans doing a voter registration drive or get out the vote initiative. There's always some question about how to limit and minimize and decrease the vote, whether it be voter ID that we've been fighting over for 20 years or reduction in the number of early voting dates in a state like Maryland. Early voting starts on October 26th and ends on November the 2nd. We've been fighting for decades on this a question of who will and will not have the ability to vote easily and effectively. As Reverend Jackson has said for decades, voter suppression is not about the all-out wholesale banning of individuals from voting. It's about skimming, about schemes that are put in place to minimize and to make it more difficult for certain populations which are antithetical to conservative movement to be able to exercise their franchise. So it is crucially important that we understand that this is what we saw in apartheid South Africa towards the end, where an entrenched racial or entrenched empowered racial majority is headed to becoming a minority. So they entrenched themselves in the court system. They entrenched themselves in the rules. They rig the system so that they can still govern despite being the minority. They take that the Tocqueville idea of the tyranny of the majority entirely too far, and we have to make sure that we are cognizant of this and prepared to fight back in every way necessary.
Look, I'm just being clear. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are. If you're looking on any of our streams on YouTube, Facebook, on Periscope, let's just be clear. The Republican Party wants to steal elections. When you sue, first of all, when the Republican governor says you can only have one mail drop box per county. We're talking about massive counties in Texas. Then when not only that, 3 years ago, the Republican legislature in Texas passed a law outlawing straight ticket voting because they said that they wanted people to really spend time thinking about their choices. No, that's not why they did it. They did it because they were getting their asses kicked in the major counties with straight ticket voting, like in 2018 when 18 black women became judges. That's why they did it. Then we see, of course, the decision, like I talked about, you suing when it comes to drive-through voting. What are they going to sue next? Where they make precautions for people who are elderly? Will they actually go to the car as opposed to having them come in? They're going to make those folks get out with their walkers or get out with their scooters as well to come in and vote. I can go on and on and on across this country how Republicans consistently and often make it about voter suppression, and I don't care how many times Mellett comes on here and says, no, it's not official policy of the Republican Party. No. When Amendment 4 was passed in Florida, what did they do? Hell no, we're not going to let upwards of 1.4 million people get the right to vote back. Oh, no. They passed a law that said you got to pay all your fines and penalties, and then they sued them, went to the Supreme Court, and the state Supreme Court, to the federal courts, and allowed it to stand. They are going, and Scott, last point, and speak to this. This is about white fear. This is about white Republicans not wanting black people, Latino people, Asian people, the Native Americans to be able to be participants in this democracy. They are trying to guarantee, as long as they can, because they see what's coming, white rule in America.
Under color of law. I mean, Michael talked about, well, during Reconstruction and back in the day, well, the most powerful part of all of this is, one, that these specious arguments that are being made to protect the vote are really suppressing the vote and doing under color of law. Thank goodness that we've got an independent judiciary, even in some of these red states, who have thrown this nonsense out. But it raises and begs another point, and Roland, you talk about this a lot, the importance of people not just voting at the top of the ballot, but down ballot at the state level and at the federal level, and being educated as a voter. Because you think about it, none of these voter suppression efforts, or most of them, could not play, whether it's gerrymandering or voter suppression, if the Republicans didn't control these state houses and these governorships. And so it's super important for the people who watch this show and for black people to understand the importance of their vote, to understand the power of the census, and understand why their vote matters as who you elect as a prosecutor, who you elect in your state legislature. And so the work begins after November 3rd if Biden wins and the Democrats take back the Senate and the House. One, the work to undo all of these machinations that have undermined free and fair voting, but more importantly, to get Democrats elected at the state level as well as on the House and Senate side so that they can be protected despite who's in the White House. That's going to be a lot of work.
Look, it's very clear what we're dealing with here. We also are looking at, again, the type of misinformation that's being out there. And there also is, again, when you see the games being played all across the country, even in all these different elections.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
All right, the folks at Ceek.com, black-owned company founded by Mary Spio. They, of course, a virtual reality company. You can check out their content at Ceek.com, Ceek.com. You can do so, of course, with these VR headsets. You can look at it, of course, on your regular device or your pad or your computer. But if you want to experience being in the room, you can use this headset right here. All you simply do is just pop in your cell phone in here, pop it on, and then put this headset on, and you can literally experience their content in virtual reality. And so allows for you to do a 360-degree view of the room. But also, folks, they have the 360-degree 4D headphones right here. These are Bluetooth headphones. They have complete surround sound in terms of as you hear the particular music. Gamers love them as well when they're playing their games. And so it's just phenomenal bass in these headphones as well. You can get one or both devices at Ceek.com using this promo code RMVIP 2020, RMVIP 2020. So we certainly thank the folks at Ceek.com for being a partner with us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered.